When we have this heightened expectation of our children to listen the very first time, we're setting everybody up for failure. In the studies that I did, something along the lines of 70% of parents believe their 3-year-old and up should be able to listen the first time. And that is just simply not true, right? A lot of the reasons why we quote unquote listened the first time is because there were punitive measures that happened afterwards. And it was either shame-based or physical or verbal. And so we encoded that this was a safety protocol that we had to do in order to maintain closeness and proximity and safety to our parents. Now, we are raising Gen Alpha kids, right? We are teaching them how to be in touch with their feelings. We're teaching them how to ask for things. We're teaching them how to push boundaries. And it's pushing up against our edge of tolerance and what we know.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Purta. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. Raise your hand, unless you're driving, if you feel like telling your kids the first time to do something never works. Me, definitely. I feel like it becomes this like cycle where like, okay, I'm going to let them know what I need. And they're going to ignore me. And I'm going to have to say it again. And I'm going to say it again. And then I'm going to get pissed and I'm going to start yelling. Or I start threatening to take the stuff away or, lose their privileges. And it's like a lose-lose situation because then they start having a meltdown. And then I have to deal with that. And so when I met my guest here, Becky Jennings, I was so excited because one of the topics that she loves to talk about is how to get out of that horrendous cycle that is repeating yourself as a parent. And so we're going to be talking all about that. And I know if you don't experience that, then you're amazing.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You are 1% of the population. I mean, don't quote me on that. But yeah, I'm super excited to have you here, Becky. Thanks for coming on to the show. She is a parenting coach and she is from Responsible Parenting. I love the play on words. For those who are new to you, can you please share with them where you live, how old your kids are, and what made you want to become a parent coach?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. This is really exciting. I'm in Los Angeles. I have 2 living children, and I'll play on that in just a second. But my oldest is almost 9. My youngest just turned 6. And I really jumped into this for my own personal benefit from the beginning. In 2019, I had a full-term stillbirth, which really pushed me towards learning how to heal the body, heal my nervous system, heal the thoughts that were coming into my head, all the fear, all the doubt, everything that comes with trauma. And then on top of that, we found out that my oldest had severe ADHD. Plus, we're still trying to figure out what that other bonus stuff is that we're working with. So we just call it ADHD plus. But through all of that healing and all of that learning, I've found out that I just wasn't capable in terms of my instincts and my skill level to parent at the level that my ADHD son needed. I needed outside resourcing. I needed to learn a system. My intuition could only take me so far. I needed more. So that really put me on this incredible journey of figuring out how to parent from nervous system to nervous system, how to accommodate my ADHD son while not being permissive and letting things just run themselves. And so from that has really developed this program, Responsible Parenting, that helped me figure out what it is that I needed to do, the steps I needed to take to be able to actually choose how I responded in the moment versus constantly running on instinct, frustration, triggers, and all of that.
Okay. Hold up. There was so much there that I could speak to. First of all, I also have a neurodivergent son. My stepson's also neurodivergent. He has ADHD, but my oldest bio child, my son, he's got sensory processing disorder.
Yes.
And until I realized that's what was going on, I was like, what the F? Like,
Oh, yeah.
seriously? Why? Is this what it's like to have kids? Because I don't get it. Like I thought it was tough with my stepson. And then it was like, oh, you thought that was tough? I'll raise you some low frustration tolerance and sensitivity to sensory issues that you didn't even know existed.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful for the world of pediatric occupational therapy because, like you said, like you didn't know what you didn't know, and your intuition only took you so far. Also, I come from immigrant parents, which parenting skills, like, I mean, we got what we
They
needed
had a
done,
lot going
but
on
it was
that they needed to
damaging.
yeah, they had a lot going on they needed
They
to
had a
tackle that
lot
they
going on.
couldn't. Yeah.
It was very survival, especially like, coming to a different country and all that. And with that said, it was like, I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end. Like, I know I'm not supposed to be this angry all the time. I'm not normally this angry of a person. So, like, something's got to change because I am so close to just having a meltdown every single day.
Yeah.
Like, both my son and I.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, I can't do this. It's a miracle that we even had our daughter, honestly. But I mean, learning those tools on how to first understand what was going on with my son and like have that reframe of, oh, he's not being difficult to just like get you, right? He's struggling. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I feel immense guilt for like not knowing what I didn't know. And like, shit, did I screw you up? Like, I'm so sorry. Let me learn all the things that I need to learn so that I can handle these things differently. Is it easy now? No, it's still hard.
Yes.
It's easier because I feel like I have more tools to work with, but like there's just so much to unpack there alone. And I just now recognize that like if something isn't working and we're running into it so often, like with the kids seemingly not listening, like the first time or just doing what you asked or doing what they know to be the routine, I just know that that means the system is broken, the system that we're
Absolutely.
running. So can you talk more about, first of all, why do kids, I'm going to quote this, why do kids not listen the first time? What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, I mean, there could be a number of reasons why they're not listening. We also have to remember the developmental stage of their brain, right? We're working with fully functional developed brains, and they are not, right? Their prefrontal cortex, which is where logic, reasoning, problem solving, effective communication, that begins to develop around 4, and that doesn't finish developing until 28 at the best. That's saying we're in a fully secure, attached home. We have effective communication styles being presented and modeled to us on a regular basis. They're not experiencing trauma. That's if those conditions are being met. So when we have this heightened expectation of our children to listen the very first time, we're setting everybody up for failure. In the studies that I did, it was something along the lines of 70% of parents believe their 3-year-old and up should be able to listen the first time. And that is just simply not true, right? A lot of the reasons why we quote unquote listened the first time is because there were punitive measures that happened afterwards. And we learned, our nervous system encoded, if you don't do X, Y will happen to you. And it was either shame-based or physical or verbal. And so we encoded that this was a safety protocol that we had to do in order to maintain closeness and proximity and safety to our parents. Now, we are raising Gen Alpha kids, right? Let's think about that. They're alpha kids. And we are teaching them how to be in touch with their feelings. We're teaching them how to ask for things. We're teaching them how to push boundaries. We're teaching them all this stuff, and it's pushing up against our edge of tolerance and what we know. Additionally, I think it's really important to understand that when our kids are focused on something, their whole world is focused on that. If they're drawing, all they're thinking about is that drawing. If they're watching TV, which is super hyper stimulating, they're in the TV show. They might even physically feel like they are in the show. And so to break that concentration and that hyper focus, that's virtually impossible with just verbal connections. So that's one thing. When kids are involved in something, they're involved. And there's all sorts of brain waves we can talk about. But at the same time, like just knowing on the surface, when your child is actively engaged in something that they are enjoying doing, there needs to be a different intervention besides just the verbal.
That makes so much sense. And it was like such a slap in the face realization when someone was like, well, do you drop everything as soon as you need to do it when you're like knee deep in something? And the answer was like, no, right? Like, no one's going to tell me what to do. But again, like, it's just like you said, it butts up against our tolerance level because it's like, well, when we were told to do something, we were expected to do it right away because the hierarchy of the family, right? Parents know best, and you're supposed to be obedient. Otherwise, you're a bad child.
Totally.
And we're not trying to have that same culture in our own families now, raising this new generation of kids. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm uncomfortable. Like, I want you to grow up to be this kind of adult, but I still want you to listen to what I say.
Yeah, I hear that all the time from my clients. They're like, I want my child to be super strong-willed, but not to me.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Well, unfortunately, we can't have both because how I kind of look at parenting is we are simulation for testing grounds. We're like, if our kids are literally wearing like a VR headset, we're simulating how they can problem solve in situations. And I think when we look at certain triggering situations as data collection on what works and what doesn't, simulation to the end goal that we want to achieve, that really helps us kind of peel that like frustration, defiance, disrespect layer out of the equation, because I truly believe that our children aren't intentionally trying to piss us off. They're not intentionally trying to do the wrong thing. They don't want to be in trouble. It's not something any child wants. And so when we can kind of peel that back and look at this from data collection, like what's working, what's not. Okay, that clearly isn't working. I'm repeating myself so many times. And the end result of me repeating myself every single time is we're screaming at each other. I think that's enough data to say it's not working. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result or something like that. It wasn't Einstein, was it? It was somebody.
I don't think so, but yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, like, we still do it, right? Because what's happening is, and I want to say this from the jump, you're not a bad parent because you're yelling, right? What yelling is, your nervous system has detected a threat. You're feeling threatened, whether it's on discomfort, whether you feel like, a wound is being resurfaced, right? You're yelling because the trigger has been pulled and you've run out of tools. Your nervous system is saying protect, protect, protect. You're trying, but you've run out of tools. And so at that point, your nervous system goes, okay, this is the only thing we know. We're going to go down that default path. That's the only one we know. We're going to do that because at the end of the day, even if it sucks, the outcome sucks, it still ends the not listening.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to repeat it.
It still gets you what you want. And it cements that neural path. It's like, hey, this works.
Yes.
And I totally get that because there's still moments where I end up yelling, even though I know all this stuff, but at least it's fewer and farther between, which is amazing because obviously I don't want my kids to grow up fearing me, which is a very common experience from kids of our generation and even older. Yes. And I want that relationship with them where they feel like they can feel safe to tell me things, even if they think that they might be in trouble or, I would hate for them to feel like they have to hide stuff. Like I've certainly hid a lot of things from my parents because I knew that they wouldn't be okay with it. And it's a miracle that I could be in so much worse situations than I am. And it truly is a miracle that I ended up here, however I am. So I want the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something about like, well, I don't want to be permissive. Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to raise entitled kids. No. And we want them to understand like, hey, like this is important and you're not always going to get your way. And this is the reasoning. But I know that in those moments, logic is not the thing to convey at the moment because it just goes in one ear and out the other, or it doesn't even go in at all.
Yeah.
So how do we handle this where we can still instill the right values of our family and shape them in a way where it will be helpful, functional for them as an adult,
Yeah.
while still honoring what they're experiencing and getting shit done.
Yeah, totally. I think when they're really super young, it's the physical support. We're helping them start up the next thing. I think that's really important to know is that as they're really, really young, I'd say sub 5, right? We can't expect that they have that intrinsic, that internal motivation to be like, my mom said something, I'm going to go do it because I want to make the house happy. Like, that's just not what we can expect. But what we can do is we can make the verbal request. Hey, maybe 1 out of 20 times they do it. Note that that is the outlier. That is not the norm. That's the outlier. But we get it lodged in our head. We're like, progress, and we hold on to that. Like, that's the next thing that we're expecting. Just think like, that's great. That's progress. Don't expect it every single time. Right. So we can just kind of push that out of our head. This is the same thing with potty training at night. Our pediatrician was like, when you see a month of dry diapers, then you can remove the diaper at night and just do underwear. It's the same thing here, right? When we see over and over and over again that this works, like I'm able to say it one time, then we can keep repeating the one thing. But until we're seeing consistent behavior in the direction that we want to see, we need to help them with the startup phase. Typically, a child is not going to want to stop doing something that they're really, really enjoying to transition to something that is less exciting. So what is our job? We help it be more exciting. We get the process going where we're starting to wire the mundane with fun, mundane with connection, mundane with excitement. And I think if we can add any sort of curiosity, creativity, play, or if they kind of take control, they take the lead, all of those things will help start the amygdala firing of like, ooh, this is really exciting. This is activating. And then we are way more likely to get the outcome that we want. A lot of the time that starts with just physical touch and eye contact, tapping them on the shoulder, having them look at you. Sometimes I literally point to my eyes and I say, please look at my eyes. I have something to say, and that is the habits that we can get in. Touching the shoulder. I remember 3 years ago, so my son must have been like 4 or 5. I was like, okay, time to come to the table for dinner. Come to the table for dinner. Hey, it's dinner time. Literally never moved, didn't shift, no eyebrow move, nothing. I went over, tapped him on the shoulder. I said, hey, it's time for dinner. He goes, oh, okay. Had no clue that I was talking because he was engaged in something else. Sucked in, just zeroed in on what he was doing. And we get all up in our head like, oh my God. And these storylines come pouring in of how disrespectful. I can't believe he's so entitled. Why would he act like this? And then I tapped him on the shoulder. He had no clue I was even in the room. And he's like, okay, coming. But like we get in our heads and we create and manufacture this really distorted lens in which we're viewing our kid through. And it just does the whole thing a disservice. So I would say initially with the 5-year-old and below, assume you're helping with the startup, the get up and go. Just assume if you can add any sort of play to it, whether it's a joke or whether you come in and you whisper and you're like, I have to go tell you a secret, or any of that stuff, anything that engages curiosity, anything that intrigues them, any play at all, anything creativity. If you're like, oh my gosh, my body literally can't move and I have to get to the kitchen. Can you help me? Can you push me all the way to the kitchen? They're like, yeah, I can. Do you know how strong I am? It's things like that like are so simple, but it gets them through that really clunky transition onto the other side. And then they're like, okay, I'm here. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think motivation is such a strong thing, even for us as adults, right?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Sometimes it's just a matter of like gamifying something to entice you to go do something. We have been working with my almost 6-year-old daughter on getting more familiar and confident on the bicycle. She's still got training wheels, but like any inch that feels like it's going quote unquote downhill, she like freaks out. She's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you have brakes, remember, like you can go however fast or slow you want. But when we took her bike riding, she's like, I don't want to go. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever to go anywhere. And I made this joke with my husband. I was like, I bet you we will only go 1 mile this whole time.
Yes.
And so we're like, okay, well, I'm getting frustrated. And I was like, okay. So I'm like trying to get creative. I was like, okay, I'll count every time you draw a circle with your feet. And so I counted to 300 and I got sick of it because that's a lot of talking while I'm writing too, right? But she went to 300. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I can't keep writing and counting. This is like too much for me. And then my husband's like, oh, you like to be the leader? Well, to be a leader when we're bike riding, you have to go faster than us. Otherwise, we're going to pass you. And so anytime she'd slow down, I'd be like, beep, beep, I'm coming over. And then she would find that extra motivation and drive to keep going.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's figuring out this is not working, pausing, be like, okay, if this isn't working, what can we try next?
Yeah.
Because
it's that
so
data
many
collection.
years. Yes,
It's
exactly.
the data collection. Yeah.
I spent so many years like just rinsing and repeating and rinsing and repeating, thinking like, what the heck? We've done this so many times before. How do you not know that this is how life works in this house? And I only set myself up for disappointment and frustration.
Absolutely.
And then took it out on them. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, damn, I wish I knew all these things sooner.
Yep.
But now that I know, I mean, great. It's like not too late to set a new way of doing things in family life. But like, I kind of want to address that before I move on to the other ages with parents who are listening. They're like, oh gosh, I totally do that.
Yeah. Well, you know what you touched on. So you found one of your daughter's key motivators, which is competition, control, right? And so the same thing happened. My ADHD son refused to ride a bike. He was like, not doing it. We were talking like 6, 7. We were like, come on, when are you going to ride a bike? We practiced every summer at 5. Couldn't do it. You know, I think it was 6. No, I think it was actually 7. His younger brother, who is 3 years younger, was like a day away from getting off of his training wheels. And my older was still on training wheels. And that visual of that competition for him, he was like, not a chance that my younger brother is going to be off training wheels before me. So within an hour, he was off training wheels. But that was the motivator, right? The competition and the control was the motivating factor for him to let fear kind of sit on the sideline for the first time. And then he was like, oh, this is so easy. Why was I complaining about this? But that is such a key indication and honestly something that we can really use for 5 years old and up, right? When we want them to start motivating to do things independently, it's our job to figure out what it is that sparks the get up and go for them. So is it play? Is it humor? Is it an inside joke? Is it a code word? What is that? What are their interests? What gets them really excited? And how can we pull that into the next thing? Competition, control, right? Anything that is, and I find this, routines can get really stale with ADHD kids. Like, oh God, I have to do this again. I have to brush my teeth again, or I have to eat breakfast again. Like just today, my son was like, breakfast was sitting in front of him. He goes, oh my gosh, I forgot I have to do this. And it was like, you forgot you have to breakfast? Like we have breakfast every day. And it was just, we have to add some novelty into these routines, because if not, it's not going to happen. So especially for the neurodiverse children, we have to figure out what it is that motivates their brain. Because if you've met one ADHD kid, you've met one ADHD kid, because everybody's presentation is vastly different. So to have an umbrella strategy per kid doesn't work. So it's like, what is my child's key motivators? Is it competition? Is it play? Is it being in control? Is it being silly? Is it adding novelty? Is it having an inside joke? Is it like, what is it to them that you can see the like light behind their eyes. You can see them getting like, ooh, we're going to do something fun, And that's where we have to test, we have to collect data, and we're like, okay, well, that one didn't work like at all. And then moving on to the next, and not looking at those moments as, oh my God, I'm failing at everything, but I'm doing my job as the caregiver and provider of this child to figure out what works for them. And a huge part of it, and this is like one of the main things that I work with my clients, is figuring out the root of the story of why it's hurting your feelings so much. What about this moment is affecting you? What bruise is it pushing on that you're like, ooh, that one hasn't been pushed on in a long time? Where is that core coming from? Because some people are like, oh, not listening wouldn't bother me at all. But other people are like, that lights my body on fire. So why? Why does that light your body on fire? And when we can kind of figure out what that is, we can create a new storyline around that to really support ourselves.
I think a lot of parents are actually very surprised when they start working with parenting coaches to find that, they originally come to you and they're like, fix my child, make them listen. And then they don't realize that it's turning the table. It's like, actually, to get more cooperation, there needs to be more connection. In order for there to be more connection, you actually need to understand why you're getting triggered by all of these things.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I actually just have like a 4-step process that I wash, rinse, repeat like all the time. It's like, your job is to notice what's happening in your body, right? Yes. So we, because of the fast-paced breakneck speed at which we are parenting and the demands, and it's a level that I don't think any body is able to handle. Yet we do it every single day. And we're like so shocked that we have mental breakdowns, and we're so shocked we're screaming at our kids at the end of the day. And that's not your fault. Like, we are not in a system set up to succeed. We are just straight up not. And so it does fall on us to heal ourselves and support ourselves and figure it out. And that's why I love what I do, because I can actually provide that framework for people. But essentially, it's like, what is happening in your body as you're heading into that trigger? Are you feeling hot? Is your jaw clenching? Are you starting to sweat? Is your brow furrowing? Are you starting to like grit your teeth? Are your fists clenching? Do you have a rapid heart rate? Those are all signs that your nervous system is sending you, being like, alert, alert, we're heading into a place we don't like to be. And your nervous system is not thinking about anything else besides self-preservation and safety. It's not thinking, I should be doing a lot to protect this kid in front of me who's 3 and who has no idea what they're doing to you. That's not what the nervous system is saying. The nervous system is saying, we've felt this before. We hate this feeling. So I'm going to do every single thing in my power to shut this down so that you don't feel this anymore, period. So once we understand that, we can start to go, okay, my nervous system is sending me signs to protect myself. Okay, got it. Noticing. Even just noticing gives us a little bit of a pause, right? Because we're like, we've now said, I'm thinking about this. This is like 5 seconds. That's a good amount of pause, Then we're like, what is the stories that are flooding into my head? Because we can immediately disrespect, this is a defiant kid. I'm future tripping all the way to when they're not listening to somebody in college or at work, or, they're with a girl, heaven forbid, and they haven't read the cues and the consent is not there. I mean, we go wildly quickly to places of not good. And so we're like, okay, we have registered the cues that our body is sending us. We're rooting down into the stories and we're like, okay, is this story actually based in fact? Or is this just like amplifying the moment for me? If we do that, that's like 20 seconds, 30 seconds where we're still not talking, right? We can say, this feels disrespectful. Okay. Is it? Is it disrespectful? Or is that something that I never felt respected in my life? Right? We're separate. We get to literally separate the cobwebs of like past and reality, past and current, because the past is always going to intensify. It's always going to keep us stuck. It's always going to point blame. It's always going to be the victim, right? So we get to say, is my kid actually the perpetrator? Like I'm always looking at my kid. I'm like, are you the perp in my head? I'm like, no, you're not. You're 6, And so then we get to say, okay, take a beat. What's my regulation protocol? Am I taking a deep breath? Sometimes breath doesn't work for people, right? So am I going to get a glass of water? Am I literally stomping my feet to get my energy out? Am I shaking? Am I going outside to have cold air on my face? Whatever it is, do that next. So we've registered, we root down into the story, we regulate, then and only then should words come out of our mouth. That's it. Like, it takes a lot of practice to get there, and no one's perfect. Nail this 50% of the time, but that's the process to make it, to get it going.
But even 50% of the time, like, even though on a test, you'd be like, that's an F, right?
Right.
But here's the thing is that Our kids don't need us to be perfect parents who never get upset, who never react poorly. It's in the repair work that we do. It's in our effort to do better next time, or like to reflect and learn more about ourselves so that we can go in feeling just a bit more aware
Totally.
in how we're feeling, right? Like, listeners, if you've been here with me for a while, clients who are listening, you know, this is what we do. This is the work that we do, right?
Yeah.
It's all about getting to know yourself and your nervous system,
Yeah.
and realizing, oh, I'm hitting an edge. I'm getting triggered. Now is not the time to talk about things if I want it to be productive, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's so key. And I have learned to not approach my kids right away if something goes down, because I
No.
know that nothing good is going to come out of that, right? Like,
No, and I think we
absolutely
were
nothing.
so trained to solve a problem and move on. Solve a problem, move on, don't talk about it, or just brush it under the rug and act like it didn't happen. And then we were sitting there like, well, now it feels weird. Like I still feel shame. And so we were just like, fix, fix, fix. Oh God, I hate this feeling. Like I have to fix this and we have to find a solution. If you have a neurotypical kid, that is never going to work. I have learned that sometimes repair takes a week, like
Mm-hmm.
little tiny chunks. And that's hard for me because that doesn't jive with how I operate. So, like, hey, we do need to talk about this. It's still something we need to address. Should we do it tonight? How about this weekend? That has been such a learning curve for me, to allow for space between the moment. It's not natural. It does not feel good.
No,
But that gives,
especially
yeah,
if you feel anxious about the disconnect, which is like how I tend to be, right? I
totally.
come from the camp of, you talk about it right away because you care. And if you don't talk about it, then you're avoiding it and you don't care as much. But that's not actually what's true, right?
Mhm.
Each of our nervous systems may crave something different, right? We're either craving safety through connection and repair, or we're craving safety through space to process and gain clarity. And
Yeah.
so I think it's really important to understand which one you are. And I talk a lot about something that I call consensual conversations, which you so beautifully explained, right? Like giving it space so that the conversation can be set up for success. Because if
Oh
you're
God.
like, no, we got to talk about this right now, and they're like, I am not ready to,
Yeah.
you're not setting it up for success. You're just pushing what you want, and your action is saying what I want is more important than what you want at the time.
Yes. I love that. And that's actually something that my son's gotten pretty good at. Is he said, it actually, I can't do this right now. And
Good
it's
for him.
not that he is trying to punt and not take responsibility. Again, the storyline I used to tell myself was he's punting because he's XYZ and he wants to avoid. But now I'm like, oh, his nervous system is not ready. Like just last night, I asked him to brush his teeth in front of me, heaven forbid, because, we sometimes they just don't want to
Mm-hmm.
brush their teeth. And sometimes they'll wet their toothbrush and make it look like they brushed
Mm-hmm.
their teeth, and they did not. So I asked him to brush his teeth in front of me. He lost his ever loving mind on me. I mean, I did it. I brushed my teeth. I swear, smell my breath, like everything. Right. And I said, it's okay. I totally get it. I just need to watch it. That's just what's going to happen. Still here, still love you, kind of like super matter of fact, love you kind of thing. Meanwhile, my body is literally on fire saying like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, I can't believe we're in the same fight again over teeth. It's 1 minute. I'm only asking him to do 1 minute. Like it's nothing. And we have this thing where we go nose to nose. Like we have a code word, it's zebra pants. Zebra. If somebody yells zebra pants, no matter how angry we are, we have to go nose to nose and try not to laugh. He was not having it. He was like, no, I won't do it. I won't do it. And he was like, I just need space. And so gave him space. About, I don't know, 2.5, 3 minutes later, we're in bed and he's like, okay, I can do zebra pants now. And he needed to get out of
Mm-hmm.
a closed environment in the bathroom. He needed to have me not kind of be controlling the situation. He brushed his teeth. He did what he needed to do. He kind of begrudgingly was like, get me out of this room. But then afterwards, he was like, okay, ready to connect and do our thing that we do to make sure that we're back in alignment with each other. And that led to like a really funny evening of bedtime. And we both left like happy as could be. And so I think it's like in the moment, we panic of like, if we lose control over the moment, our kid will feel like they can get away with anything and they will never learn how to be a functional member of society. Like literally that's where we go. But if we can just say, oh, this isn't the style in which my child is able to resolve things. They might need a minute away from me, which is the stimulus of their dysregulation at the moment. So giving that breath, that's teaching them that a pause is necessary. And that's actually a really good learning lesson for us. It's like our kids are literally begging for the pause and we're trying to jam the situation. So it's like we both need to pause. And how great that naturally and intuitively they're doing that. Like we can learn from that. It was a really like, I'm like, okay, solidified that, like that experiment for me.
I love that. That's such an awesome like real time example that I've definitely been in a lot of those situations where I'm like, why are you locking yourself in the bathroom? We got to go, whatever, because he didn't want to go to wherever it is that we wanted to go to, or he had to go to, I should say. I wanted him to go. He had to go. So much of this is bringing up the necessity to really individualize how we raise each of our kids. Yes. And as moms, I feel like we crave just things taking less effort, right? We automate as much as we can. We create these routines to like lessen the load that we have, right? Like if it becomes a routine, then we don't have to think as much, right? But the thing with parenting is that each child has different needs.
Yes.
Annoyingly.
Yeah. Annoyingly. And let's add the extra layer of reparenting ourselves to that.
Yes.
I was talking to my mother-in-law and I was like, no one ever tells you that it's going to be you're reparenting yourself. You're figuring out emotional regulation in your nervous system for the very first time post kid, because no one ever talked about that before kids. Then you have multiple kids who all have vastly different needs and personalities and coping strategies. And you're like, and it typically falls on us to figure it all out and be the caregiver for all. So it is a lot of mental gymnastics. What I will say is the earlier you can do the work for yourself, the easier each stage becomes, because it's not like we're relearning the system every single time. We're just, again, innovating and adapting like a couple degrees to match their new hormonal state, to match their new age, like all the different things. But when you have the fundamentals in place, the fear goes away, because it's not like you're sitting in every situation going, oh my God, I have no clue what to do. It's like, oh, I've been here. I've felt uncomfortable before. I know what to do with discomfort. I know what to do when fear comes and tries to take over. I know that my kid needs space, and we're just adapting to the new version, but we understand the fundamentals.
Yeah. And speaking of, like, as we're individualizing how we raise our kids, we're also reparenting ourselves. Sometimes when we're around our parents, they've got comments about how, I don't know, soft we are or permissive, or like, that would have never flied with you when you were a kid. I would have spanked you, or I would have yelled at you, and you didn't do that. And it's like, one thing my husband said, like, made it so clear to me how different we're doing things. There was like, I don't know, a couple years ago, I was like watching my daughter do her thing. She's wild. And I was like, where does she get that from? And my husband was like, are you serious? That's you. And I'm like, I was not like that. And he goes, if you were raised differently, where, it wasn't a thing where you had to like be seen but not heard, and you didn't have to be so compliant, otherwise you'd get in trouble, you would have been like her. And I was like, you're so right, because there's elements of her goofiness and her like drama that I definitely have, but I wasn't allowed to do that because of I don't know, their fear of what other people would think, like, oh, your child's so loud or so expressive or so emotional or whatever. And here we are just letting her be her.
Yes.
And because of the way I grew up, I'm like, dude, she's so much. I don't ever tell her that, but I'm like, she's so much. But it's
Yeah.
because
Oh my
I
God.
wasn't
So much.
allowed.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, how do you help your clients navigate the commentary of
Mm,
people who are raising kids differently and
yes.
don't understand what the heck you're doing, thinking that you're going to raise kids who are not functional,
Yes.
responsible human beings?
Yes. Well, absolutely. First of all, I will say that so we go back east and we spend every summer with my in-laws, which is definitely a luxury to be able to like spend all summer there. Like the kids have such a different East Coast whole summer experience. So they kind of are like West Coast, East Coast kids, which I love. And I'm like glad that they have that and commentary, right? Commentary to the point where a couple years back I was like, you can take them, I'm not going, right? I just can't do this. I can't feel attacked. I can't feel all these things. And my husband was like, yes, agreed. Also completely unrealistic that like you're not with your kids for 6 weeks. I'm like, oh. So, what I ended up doing is I ended up following Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication framework, which to me is the bread and butter, literally the holy grail of all communication. It just, there is nothing, there's no flaws. I have zero notes for nonviolent communication. And so I sat down with my mother-in-law and for 6 hours, I think it was an absurd amount of time because I've been with my husband for like 20 years. We went through scene by scene, trigger by trigger. She didn't follow the nonviolent communication framework because she didn't know it, but I stuck to it like glue. And as a result, she started kind of mimicking the same thing. Well, I noticed that, and so basically nonviolent communication, I think you've mentioned this many, many times
Yes.
on your podcast, but it's essentially like the first thing, an observation without evaluation, right? I noticed that facts, straight facts with no feelings, like no judgment, no blame, no criticism, nothing, straight facts. I notice when you're with my kids, X. I notice if I say something, you say this next. Undeniable, could be held up in court facts, right? When I notice that, it makes me feel. It makes me feel shame. It makes me feel sad. Keep it as Dr. Seuss language as you can, because big feelings like, judged, frustrated, those are a little
Charged.
Little charged. Yeah. So Dr. Seuss, it makes me feel sad. It makes me feel hurt, right? Because I value, this way of, I value raising independent kids. I value raising problem solving. I value allowing my child to know what feelings are so that they know what to do with them. And then finally, would you be willing to go along with me? Or if you're feeling some sort of way about it, pull me aside. Don't do it in front of my kids. Making that request is so empowering for the parent or the grandparent, because now we're including them versus saying the way you did it was wrong and I'm judging you for that. And because you did that, I'm doing it the complete opposite way because you fucked me up, essentially. Like, we're not doing that. We're basically saying, this is what I'm noticing. This is how it makes me feel, because I really value this new way of raising kids. Would you be willing to let me run the show and have me parent, or say these side comments to me later, or write it down and I'll read it, any of those things. And it's just, honestly, it saved the relationship that I had with my mother-in-law. I would say we're closer than ever as a result. Now we have she'll go, oop, I notice I'm doing that. Or she'll say, ooh, I really stepped on that one, and she'll say it though. And she's aware. And now we are kind of like a team, and I can punt to her and I know she knows what I'm doing, and she's following to the best of her ability exactly what I'm asking to do. And I think that that's a really beautiful framework. It also takes the emotional charge away from us that we have to prove why. We don't ever have to prove why we're doing something. We're doing something because it feels better to us, because we know the science and the data and all the stuff proving that emotional intelligence is the number one key indicator for children's success. So we know why we're doing it. We don't have to prove it. Just, they don't know it. There was nothing like this. So nonviolent communication, 10 out of 10.
They also don't need to co-sign. Like, you could just say, like, this is what we're doing.
Yes.
Right? Because I feel like a lot of times when we have a conversation with someone that doesn't necessarily agree with us, we are trying to get them to understand and agree.
Yes.
But that doesn't matter most times. What matters is, this is what I want.
Yes.
This is why I'm doing this, because this is what I want. And I think women struggle with that because we've not really been promoted or encouraged to use our voice to stand up and advocate for ourselves. This is not what this episode is about, but that's why it can feel uncomfortable, and we feel the need to justify why we need to do these things and why they also need to join us. And just know that,
and by the way,
necessary.
That's the exact same thing with our kids, right? Yeah. We go on this justification train to be like, this is why you have to listen to me. And also, we don't have to do that. Like, that's not, they don't need to be on board and fully as jubilant as we are about every single task. That's never going to happen. And you're right. It's like, they do not need to co-sign on what needs to get done.
No. Okay. So we talked about sub 5, right?
Yes.
How to handle that. What about 5 and up? How do we make those adjustments for that?
Yeah. In terms of not listening, you know, first of all, I think it's just, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but finding that motivation. In terms of regulation, I would say 11 to 12, a child is beginning to learn how to self-regulate. When we can put that in our head as like, my child is going to need me almost 100% to regulate up until preteen, teenage years. Teenage years, they're going to be like, ugh, you're repugnant anyways. I don't even want to be around you. So like, great.
Yeah.
But up until then, it's like, buckle in. We are here. We're here to help. We're here to support. And we can move from like the person who is kind of like the marionette puppet master, making sure everything happens. We can start to move into like a more of a collaborator, more of a supporter, but we still are present. And if there is a system in which we need to be getting something done on a consistent basis, likely we're a part of the startup still. But again, we're tweaking that same sort of style and that same sort of technique to elevate it to their level. So maybe it's not like, oh, mommy can't move anymore, you know, help me. Right. But maybe it's like, we're saying like, you know, hey, I did this in 30 seconds. Can you do it in 29? Something like that. You know, we're just switching it, but we're appealing to their same motivators. And we got to figure out, that's the key thing. What is the thing that gets your child off the couch and is like, ooh, I'm down with that game? For my kids, it's like anything physical, right? Whether it's like right now, they're still young. So like I can do a horsey ride, or, you know, they can lie or I can lie on my back and they have to push me all the way to the bathroom, you know, something like that. But as they get older, my job is to figure out what that physical thing is that is got to keep them in the game, keep them in that transition. Every single time a transition is sticky, which is that not listening, right? Because we're asking them to go from something that they're enjoying to something that they're not going to enjoy as much. So that buffer, that gap has to be filled with something motivational and exciting and that has value for them to engage in. So if we can just figure out what our kids' key motivators are and come up with like, honestly, you could chat GPT, even though aren't we moving away from that now? We're moving to something else now. So you can AI, whatever AI you're doing, but be like, my kid is motivated by competition. My kid is motivated by creativity. What are 20 different things that I could do that don't require any external thing, like any toy, any object, just my body, their body? What could I do to excite them to transition from something to the other? That's what I would do.
Absolutely. And obviously some days will be easier than others, right? Like sometimes my son and daughter will be like gung-ho about getting all the chores done, and then they can go do the thing like play outside with their friends or have their friends over or I don't know, watch a show together or something. And then other days it's like dragging, right?
Yeah.
For us, at least for me growing up, it was like you have to get all your shit done before you can go do the fun things, right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes it is giving yourself permission to parent differently and not have that pressure on yourself of like, oh my gosh, what are other people going to think or say
100%.
about what we're doing? And so sometimes that has looked like, okay, complete one chore, then you get a 10-minute break and then do the next one and then a 10-minute break and then do the next one. Like, I think we need to keep our eyes on the prize. Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? Maybe
Yes.
it'll take a little bit longer, but at least I'm saving myself from a meltdown.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. So for those who want to know more about you and working with you, where can they connect with you and how do you work with people?
Yes. Awesome. So on my Instagram, that's like my bread and butter. It's Response Able Parenting, RESPONSE Able Parenting. And essentially I share so many tips on there. It's unreal. And then I have a coaching community, and essentially we have 3 different big chunks. We have a whole nervous system reset in there. Then the big bulk of it is effective communication strategies to get our kids to do the things we want to do. And it's really designed to have all of the good stuff that gentle parenting intended, but it is tweaked to match the intensity of a strong-willed kid, of a neurodivergent child, because that requires a different skill set of communication. So we have a full parental nervous system reset, and then we have the effective communication, and of course group coaching calls and the like. So upcoming is going to be a whole behavioral section where we're literally breaking down like lying, hitting, and we're going to basically break down based off different motivators how to change that behavior to the behavior that we would like to see, right? Working towards that ideal outcome. But typically you can meet me on my Instagram page. You can book a free call with me. I would be so honored to work with it.
Amazing. Okay. I hope that you're taking away a lot from this episode. If you feel like embarrassed, ashamed, guilty, don't. Okay. We still have those moments, and you can get to the point where you can have more wins and be able to give yourself more grace and compassion and help your home become more peaceful.
Yes.
I think that's what we all desire. It's just sometimes we weren't given the tools or shown how, and that's no fault of your own. But if you want something different, empower yourself to gain those tools and help your family kind of just change the culture of how things work, and then reap the benefits of the connection that you can have with everyone in your family. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please send this to them. Better yet, tag us in your stories so we can give you a shout out. I'm sure Becky would love to connect with any of you who desire a change in your home. If you love this show, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you listening in every single week. If you would be so kind to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I would so appreciate that. That's what helps the show grow and helps more people like you get the support that they need. Thank you again, Becky, for being a guest on the show. I'll catch you all back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Purta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.